My name is Kennedy, 36 years old, living in a quiet suburb north of Seattle. My marriage to Ethan, in the eyes of many, seemed like a blessing I received after years of loneliness. Ethan was the man I once believed would help me build the warm, complete home I had never known during my childhood. My childhood was filled with long, lonely nights in a small house where only silence remained. My parents were always caught up in endless arguments. Their words felt like invisible knives carving deep into my tender memories. I used to sit by the window, watching happy families outside, wondering why I couldn't have that. So when Ethan came into my life with his kind eyes and warm smile, I told myself, here he is, the man who can help me write a new chapter. From the very beginning, Ethan gave me a sense of safety. He was gentle, quiet, and a little awkward when it came to big life decisions. That uncertainty made me want to protect him. I thought that with love and time, I could help him grow, become a true partner. That belief made me love him more, made me hope for the family I'd dreamed of. When I married into his family, my in-laws, Monica and Charles, Monica, welcomed me with kind smiles and warm greetings. Monica hugged me tightly the first time we met and whispered, "Our family is so lucky to have you." Charles simply nodded and smiled, his eyes as gentle as any model father's. I cried from the emotion. It felt like I had finally found a peaceful harbor. At first, those family dinners truly made me feel like I belonged. We sat around an old wooden table, sharing dishes Monica had cooked herself. She would carefully arrange each plate of vegetables, each bowl of soup, and invite me to taste first with a loving look. "Kennedy, does this suit your taste?" I smiled, my heart full of the happiness I had always longed for. Charles would listen to everyone's stories, occasionally nodding in agreement with his wife. Ethan always held my hand under the table, giving it a gentle squeeze whenever I shared something, as if to remind me he was by my side. In those early days, I truly believed I was the luckiest person. Those cozy dinners slowly became memories as time passed. I began to notice changes I didn't want to believe at first. Monica started talking more about parties. She spoke of special occasions, anniversaries, and seemed excited planning bigger, grander gatherings. Ethan just smiled kindly and nodded, never objecting. Every time Monica mentioned it, her eyes shone with excitement that was hard to hide, while I slowly felt lost in that very house. I began to worry, but kept telling myself maybe this was just a way to bring the family closer. I had no idea it was the start of what would force me to face the harshest truth of my life. Parties began to fill my life more and more. At first they were simple dinners to celebrate Monica's birthday or her wedding anniversary with Charles, but they quickly turned into grand gatherings with dozens of guests. The reasons were always meaningful. An old friend of Monica's returning from a trip to Europe, or a distant relative who just got promoted in New York. Each time, Monica would call me in an excited tone. "Kennedy, this time we're picking the restaurant by the harbor with a view straight over the bay. Elegant yet cozy. What do you think?" I still remember one early spring evening when we sat in a fancy restaurant, the shimmering lights reflecting on the sparkling water outside. Just as dessert was served, Monica turned to me, her voice full of care. "You're the most capable, thoughtful person I've ever met. Can you take care of this for me? I forgot my wallet." Her smile was so sweet I couldn't bring myself to say no. Charles nodded in agreement and Ethan just shrugged. "You earn more anyway, it's no big deal." That comment, which seemed light-hearted, felt as heavy as a boulder on my chest. After that night, me paying became the norm. One party followed another. When I hesitated, Monica would gently reassure me. "I know you're busy. You're so good at managing things. I trust you the most." She always spoke to me so sweetly that refusing would make me feel ungrateful. The way she positioned me as the ideal daughter-in-law was so skillful that I often questioned myself. Was this what I should do to keep the peace? The anniversaries, gifts for their friends and family vacations at luxury resorts became traditions I somehow ended up bearing. Ethan never saw it as a problem. Whenever I shared my worries, he would smile and soothe me. "Mom loves you so much. That's why she asks you. Don't overthink it. She doesn't mean anything by it." I tried to believe that. I kept telling myself that if I just tried a little harder, the family would truly love and accept me, as I had always hoped. But the more I tried, the more I saw things weren't as simple as I thought. Monica didn't stop at subtle requests at dinners. She began to gently hint at private family matters. One day after attending the graduation of a relative on Charles's side, Monica leaned close to me, her voice soft. "You know, Kennedy, I've been thinking about replacing the living room sofa for a while. I hate to ask, but I know how generous you are. Could you help me pick one, something good quality?" "I'm not good at that." Her words seeped into my thoughts so deeply that I couldn't say no without feeling cold-hearted. I kept nodding, kept trying to be the good daughter-in-law. But at night, sitting alone in our apartment, I began to feel lost in my own life. What hurt the most wasn't the money I spent, but Ethan's innocent look whenever I brought up finances. He didn't see the exhaustion in me. To him, I was always the one who could handle it, the one who was fine even as I started to crack inside. Ethan never asked if I was okay, if I was tired. One night, after a loud party celebrating the day Monica met Charles 40 years ago, I stood by the apartment window watching the city bathed in dim lights and wondered, how much longer can I keep this up? I started to fear my own silence, afraid that my endurance had fed their growing dependence. But then, thinking of Ethan's hopeful eyes, of Monica's expectations, I swallowed my protests once more. After those increasingly elaborate parties where I was pushed into the role of paying, things didn't stop as I'd once hoped. Monica began to skillfully expand her requests. First was the living room sofa she'd mentioned. Just a few weeks later, there was a brand new, high-extend leather sofa in their living room, paid for on my card after a shopping trip where Monica gently insisted, "I wouldn't feel right having anyone else help me choose but you." Then came the new SUV for Charles because he needed a safer car to take the grandkids out. Monica called me during a meeting, her voice as sweet as honey. "Kennedy, could you help take care of this for Dad, Charles? You know how he keeps saying the old car's falling apart and it worries me. You're so capable, I trust you." I put the phone down, my heart heavy as stone. The private vacation Ethan and I had planned had to be cancelled because paying for that car had drained a large portion of my savings. But Monica didn't stop. She started talking about renovating the house. "The house is too old now, Kennedy," she sighed during a lunch. "Your dad and I are getting older and climbing the stairs is so hard. I'm thinking of fixing it up a bit so it's easier. The cost won't be much." But that not much turned out to be a six-figure number when I saw the contractor's estimate. Ethan just rubbed my shoulder and said casually, "It's not that much. You're good at earning. Helping Mom and Dad is helping our future too." I started cutting back on everything for myself. Whenever I thought about buying a new dress for work, I told myself, "You don't need it." When coworkers invited me for a weekend getaway, I declined, saying I was too busy, though inside I longed for a bit of freedom. I gave up the idea of signing up for the yoga class I had been looking forward to. Every time I looked at my account balance, my heart tightened. It wasn't because I regretted the money. It was because I felt myself fading from my own life. Ethan and I had once talked about having children, but time and again I had to postpone it. I was terrified of the thought of managing a young child while shouldering the expenses for his entire family. One night, as I watched Ethan sleeping soundly beside me, I lay wide awake, numbers dancing in my head. How many bills, how many invisible debts I was piling onto my shoulders. Monica kept raising her expectations. She began talking about new kitchen appliances, an oak dining set worthy of the family, and then French curtains. Each time she spoke in that familiar sweet tone. "I know you love me so much, Kennedy. Will you help me with this?" Charles stayed silent, and Ethan kept giving that shrug. "Mom's getting older, please understand her." I started to feel drained. Every day after work, I no longer wanted to cook or talk. I just wanted to sit quietly in the corner of the room, staring at the city lights through the window. How long had it been since I last felt that simple joy of coming home? How long since I dared buy myself something just because I liked it? I no longer felt excited by the things that used to bring me joy. Even a new book was set aside after a few pages because my mind was too heavy. Some nights, I would wake up in the middle of the night, my heart racing, sweat pouring down. I'd sit up, looking around the apartment I once called my home, now just four walls that felt suffocating. Ethan kept sleeping peacefully beside me, unaware of my restless nights. But deep down, I began to feel something changing. A part of me no longer wanted to go on like this. I didn't know when it would finally surface, but I knew it was growing stronger each day. And I understood that if I kept staying silent, I would lose myself forever. I began to see more clearly my role in Ethan's family. Not a daughter-in-law loved for who I was, not a companion, not a partner in their eyes. I was just an interest-free bank, ready to pay for whatever Monica dreamed up, while Ethan stayed comfortably on the sidelines. Evenings after work, I would sit by the window, watching the rush of cars outside and feeling empty inside. Every time I thought of Monica, I heard those sweet words that I now recognized as full of hidden meaning. The compliments that once made me proud now echoed like an invisible burden. I had given up small things, then slowly even my private dreams, to gain an approval that never really came. Once, when Monica brought up wanting to replace the entire kitchen cabinet system with one imported from Italy, I tried to decline in the gentlest voice I could. "Mom, I'm trying to balance my finances lately. I don't think I can cover that right now." Monica smiled, but her eyes narrowed. She gave my hand a gentle squeeze. "Don't you love me? Don't you love Ethan? Don't you want our family to be happy, Kennedy?" Her voice was soft, but every word felt like a needle piercing my heart. Ethan stayed the same. Whenever I shared my exhaustion, he avoided it. He would nod absent-mindedly or change the subject. Once, I asked him directly, "Ethan, do you think it's fair for me to carry all this?" He gave a faint smile. "You're good at it, Kennedy. Mom doesn't mean anything bad, don't let it weigh on you." Then he went right back to his phone, ignoring the hopeful look I had for even a small word of understanding. Ethan's silence made me feel lost in my own marriage. Every time Monica brought up spending or shopping, I had to brace myself. She was always so tactful, so subtle. One evening, during dinner at their house while everyone was chatting happily, she suddenly looked at me with a loving voice. "Kennedy, I think you should help Dad Charles fix up the backyard. You know he loves gardening and that area's all ruined now. I'm counting on you." I kept playing the role of the perfect daughter-in-law until that day came. The night before the party, I stood looking at myself in the mirror for a long time. The woman in the reflection had deep eyes and a determined gaze. I knew that the next morning everything would change. And I was ready. The next morning, the Seattle sunlight streamed through the window, shining on the file I had carefully prepared. I placed it gently in my bag, right next to the envelope containing the divorce papers my lawyer had drawn up. As I stepped out of the house, I felt an unfamiliar strength surging through every step I took. The venue for the party was by the lake, luxurious and splendid, just Monica's style. Guests gathered in full, laughter and chatter filling the air. Monica wore a new silk dress, her face beaming like the true hostess of the grandest event of the year. Charles, as always, walked quietly behind her, wearing a kind but faint smile. Ethan came up to me and whispered, "Thank you for helping Mom with everything. You really are the rock of this family." I looked at him and smiled, the final smile of someone about to leave the role they had played for far too long. The party began, everything sparkling under the lights, the toasts, the clinking glasses blending with soft music. But I was no longer lost in that atmosphere. I was only waiting for the moment the party reached its peak, when everyone would raise their glasses to honor the couple. The very moment when the truth I had so carefully prepared would be revealed. And then, that moment drew near. My heart beat steadily, but inside I was ready to face the storm I knew was coming. Monica and Charles's 40th wedding anniversary party unfolded exactly as I expected. Extravagant, flashy, and full of hollow congratulations. The lakeside hall glowed with lights, tables draped in crisp white linens, silver plates gleaming under the candles. Laughter and chatter echoed everywhere, mingling with the clink of glasses held by guests dressed in their finest. I sat there in silence, quietly observing everything like a spectator of a play in which I had once been the lead actress. Monica, as always, stood at the center of attention, her sweet but proud voice ringing out, "This family is what it is today because of sacrifice, because of love, and support for one another." She spoke of the hard years, of how she had managed everything to keep the family together, of the love she and Charles shared. Applause followed each of her lines, but to me, they sounded hollow. Ethan sat beside me, glancing at me now and then as if seeking my agreement, but I met him only with silence. Inside I felt detached from this place, from these people who had once been my family. I was no longer the Kennedy who had once hoped to earn love through silent sacrifice. As the party drew to a close, a restaurant staff member brought out the bill, discreetly placing it in front of Monica. She glanced at it, then turned to me with that all-too-familiar smile. "Kennedy, dear, will you take care of this for me? I know you're always so reliable." Her voice was sweet as honey, but this time I felt no bitterness, because at last, the moment I'd been waiting for had arrived. I didn't reach for my wallet like I always had. Instead, I slowly opened the wedding gift box from the guests, counting each stack of cash, each check, in the stunned silence of the room. "There's $60,000 here," I said clearly, my calm tone surprising even me. "I think that should cover tonight's party." All eyes turned to me in shock. Monica froze for a second, her smile stiff on her lips. But I wasn't done. I took the thick file I had prepared from my bag, placed it on the table in front of Monica and opened it. Page after page of clear records flipped beneath my fingers. "And this," I continued, looking straight at Monica, "is everything I've paid for this family over the past 4 years. The new sofa set, the SUV, the imported kitchen, the parties, the Palm Springs retreat, every single dollar." The room fell silent. The music had stopped without anyone noticing. I saw Charles lower his head, his hand gripping the table edge. Ethan looked frozen, his eyes wide on me. Monica's face flushed red, her eyes flashing with anger, but she hadn't found the words to respond. "Almost $400,000 in total," I said, my voice still steady. "That's what I've given this family, hoping for love and respect in return. But all I got was to be taken for granted. From today, I'm done. I will no longer pay for anything. I am not this family's bank anymore." Monica shot to her feet, her voice trembling. You dare humiliate us in front of everyone. You're destroying this family, Kennedy." Her eyes burned with fury, but I saw panic there too. Charles, silent until then, finally spoke, his voice low and sad. "Monica, maybe Kennedy is right. We should reflect on what's happened." Monica turned sharply to him, her eyes full of disbelief, unable to accept that her partner had acknowledged what she wanted to deny. Ethan stared at me, his mouth moving but no words coming out. I saw confusion, shame, and a vague fear in his eyes, as if he'd just realized he was losing something precious. I gently bowed my head, gathered the file and put it back in my bag. "I've said all I need to say," I said softly but firmly. "What you think from here is up to you." And then, under the stunned stares of the guests, I left the hall, leaving behind the murmurs of the crowd, Monica's voice calling after me, and Ethan's heavy silence. I stepped outside, taking a deep breath. The Seattle night air was refreshingly clean. For the first time in years, I felt as if a massive weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I walked away from the hall that night, light in spirit but carrying a sorrow I couldn't name. The cool Seattle air soothed my soul after the storm I had just weathered. The city lights twinkled in the distance, and inside me a chapter had closed. The next morning I went to my lawyer's office and filed the divorce papers I had long prepared. My voice was calm as I signed each document, each line like the final cuts, severing the ties that had bound me for 4 years. Leaving the office, I called my manager to request time off. "I need some time to regain my balance," I said, receiving understanding from colleagues I had long neglected in favor of my in-laws. In the days following the party, Ethan called me repeatedly. He left messages, emails, even came looking for me at the old apartment, where I no longer lived. His voice over the phone was full of desperation. "Kennedy, I'm sorry. I didn't realize how bad things had gotten. Please don't leave me. We can fix this." But my mind was made up. I needed to break free, not just from him, but from the person I had lost myself to in that marriage. Monica was different. She was bitter, angry, calling Ethan, Charles, and mutual friends to complain of my betrayal. She tried to get to me through acquaintances, hinting that I should repay what the family had done for me, words I could only find bitterly ironic. But all her efforts were in vain. I was no longer the Kennedy who stayed silent and bowed her head. Ethan, after his initial panic, seemed to start waking up. When Monica kept filling his head with complaints about me, I heard from mutual friends that he had begun pushing back. He moved out of Monica and Charles's house, rented a small apartment in the suburbs and began managing his own life. I didn't know the details, but I knew he had sought therapy. Ethan slowly stepped out of his mother's shadow, something he should have done long ago. I didn't hate him, I only felt sad for both of us, for letting it go too far before we tried to make it right. As for me, I began rebuilding my life on my own terms. I sold the old apartment and bought a small house by the lake, where I could open the windows to the breeze and birdsong each morning. I repainted the walls, planted flowers on the porch and decorated the space just the way I liked. Things I'd never dared do before. I went back to work, but no longer to the point of losing myself in it. I learned to balance, to love myself first. I reconnected with old friends, relationships I had neglected while chasing the approval of a family that was never really mine. I began accepting invitations to outings, concerts, small things that made me feel alive. At night, I sat on my porch, sipping tea, feeling more at peace than ever. And then, when I wasn't looking for it anymore, love came gently. An old colleague from a past project, Liam, reached out when he heard I was divorced. We talked, at first like old friends, then grew closer without even realizing it. Liam loved me for who I was, flaws and all, and for the scars I had once tried to hide. He didn't see me as a financial crutch or someone to lean on. He saw me as myself, a strong, independent woman full of resilience but also worthy of love. Monica tried to get me back, even asking Charles to persuade Ethan to win back his wife. But when Ethan told his mother, "Let Kennedy live the life she deserves," I knew he had truly changed, and I kept moving forward, free and proud, because at last I had learned to love myself before anyone else. Today, sitting on the porch of my small house, watching the lake shimmer in the morning sun, I truly understand what freedom and happiness mean. The journey filled with tears and sleepless nights taught me that no one can define my worth but me. I am no longer a woman bound by others' expectations and burdens. Now, I live a life of my choosing, peaceful, whole, and filled with love for myself. What do you think about Kennedy's journey? Have you ever felt the same as she did? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more meaningful and touching family stories.